Hello and welcome back to another episode of Combustion RC. Today, we're going to get going on this guy here. That is the SWORKz S35-4 EVO Nitro Buggy. That's right, it has taken 16 months of this channel being going, but we have a nitro car going. Actually, it's 17 months by the time you see this video. We had these guys built, and this guy up here built. One thing I can say about it compared to the other ones, the manual is a little more broken out, so it's going to be a lot easier. We're going to go ahead and get into that in just a moment. It should be pretty darn fun. Let's look and see what's in this kit. I do know that this manual has a lot of pages. We've already got our body painted right here, so that part's done. So step 60 something is done. Yes, you heard me correctly, 60 something. Yeah, body paint step 61, 62, and 63. The only thing I have to do is cut out the exhaust port. But we are going to be running a couple servos that I still have to put in because I still have to order them. That is going to be the Savox 3292, I believe. So it's the big brother to the 3262 that we put in this guy here. That one was crazy. This one is very crazy. So the standard size brushless, it has like 800 ounces of torque at 0.05. So it's going to work great for throttle and steering. So, before we start getting into this here and what all we're going to put in this car, caffeinate and hydrate. Now, one thing that you may have seen sitting right behind me here is this nice Ultimate Racing motor. This is the Robert Battier edition, so it is the Team Edition, pre-broken in Ultimate R36 Robert Battier. It's got his stamp of approval there on the top. This is a beautiful motor. As you can see there, it's very nice ported, because they do break it in and then fully clean and check all the bearings and everything. Fantastic motors. If you've never ran an Ultimate, you don't know what you're missing. That being said, this particular one is very special. Like I said, it's the Robert Battier Team Edition. Comes with this super cool card right here that is signed by Robert Battier. It says exactly what he did for break-in on this. It also says that it's ready to go for Nitrolux fuel. Inside the box, you will find the motor. You'll find a pre-oiled Ultimate filter with the Ultimate Max Flow intake, as well as a Ultimate clutch bell and 4-shoe clutch system. So the fact that it comes with all of this is fantastic. If you've never seen the Ultimate clutch bells, this is what they look like. They are very nice. I mean, they breathe very well. And then here is the clutch shoes right here. Very nice system, very lightweight, but durable at the same time. So it cuts down on that rotating mass. In the box, you also get another Venturi. This one is a 5.75 Venturi, as well as the aluminum manifold mount for your exhaust manifold. This does not need break-in. This is fully broken in, ready to race. Drop it in, put some 30% Nitrolux fuel in there, and the tuning on it actually should be exactly as it needs to be. As long as this right here is set right. You want to make sure that your adjustment is set correctly on that. Typical standard setup here, you have your low needle, your high needle, and your idle screw back here. So that's your normal carburetor setup. Nice looking motor, and looking forward to getting this in the car and doing some brap. So this is a huge box, and as always, if you want to read the features, pause the video. I mean, this is without the body in there, and you can still see how full it is. Here's our bag of goodies that we're going to go ahead and open first. This has our fluids in it. We're doing 600 weight fluid in the shocks in this one, and it looks like 5, and I can't tell what else for diffs, but we'll find that out. Radio tray and some large and small turnbuckles in there. Man, those big ones are big too. So there's our rear wing. It's a black rear wing. That's kind of cool. That's going to not stick around. So there's our shocks. Factory air filter, which as you can see is this weird like shaped snorkely thing. We're not going to run that. We're going to run the Ultimate one, if at all possible. Bell crank and servo saver. There's our center diff, so we'll put that to the side. Bag D here, this is diff housings. This has the same snap-in ball sway link dealio that the 10 scale did, so that's interesting. Have to remember that, because if it tells us not to do that till later and not in the right step, we're going to do that in the right step. Here's the clutch bell that it comes with, as well as, can't tell if that's a 4-shoe or a 3-shoe design. So it comes with a 3-shoe clutch bell. So we'll put that together just in case we want to use a 3-bell or 3-shoe for anything, but I prefer 4-shoe, especially having the 4 aluminum shoes on that. It's much better for high RPM. Nice snap, you know, getting out of the short chutes. So we got a lot of different bags in here. Here's our fuel cell. Bag B is our front and rear diff, so we'll keep that out. If you weren't sure about nitro cars and like what nitro cars are, that little motor does not run on gasoline. It runs on nitrous oxide and methanol. And so it's 30% nitrous oxide, 9% oil, and the rest of it's methanol. So very highly explosive, very sweet smelling, but it'll also tickle your nostrils if you get too close to it and breathe too deep. It's basically the same thing they run in top fuel drag cars, just in a much smaller diluted amount with a tiny bit of oil in there, because these are kind of like a 2-stroke motor, but they're also not, because they're on a glow igniter. So they're their own world of crazy high performance, 3 horsepower, piston the size of my pinky motors. Yeah, they're crazy. That little thing turns at almost 40,000 RPM. I love nitro. I'm so excited about this. Like, I feel like a little kid again. Bag E1, full of parts. Why are bag E on these always full of parts? Bag E3. So we got E1, E2, E3, but no Ewok. Why can't we just have different letters? And here's bag F, as always. Let's get the chassis out. All right, so go ahead and open bag M, and let's look and see what's in there. All right, so before I get into bag M, I almost forgot to say, here's the chassis. So as you can see, there's some really cool hex milling in there. It looks like honeycomb. These are your different ballast points for, you know, A, B, and C positions for your ballast weight. You can add or take away ballast weight as well. You can make them pretty heavy or pretty light. You can see the bottom's got that nice laser etched SWORKz. It is much different than the Techno chassis. As you can see, it's much wider. It's not near as narrow. This is the same for the E-car. The E-car is also this wide. The biggest thing I would say that this compares to is it's very much, well, just look at it. You can see it's wider in the rear than in the front. It kind of has a similar shape to some other big names, but if you mix them together, if you know what I mean? It's like you take the best of certain things and put them together and you get this, which is the best of the best that way. Just my opinion. Let's get into bag M. Let's see what kind of fluids we have in here. And let's just start getting some building done. All right, so in this bag, we have, again, our 600 weight fluid, which I believe is somewhere around, so if 500 is 37.5, then this would probably be around 42.5 or 45, I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know weights. I don't know CPSs or CFTs or CPTs or CPAs or anything like that. I know what this is thicker than what we used in the other, though. All right, and then we have, looks like some shock standoffs, some rod ends. It's random that it's in this bag, some mud guards. Okay, well, I want to say that this needs to be put aside for now, because I doubt we're starting with rod ends and shock cups. Sure, they're here. Here's a bunch of screws. Those are here. They're for something. Yep, we'll leave those like they are. But look, they're individual baggies, you know, like the 2-wheel drive was, so that's cool. Grease, L-wrenches. You can use these. I don't recommend that you do. I recommend that you get real tools. I've used these. These aren't bad. Usually that one's an 8mm, so you can get your glow plug to pull it out. All right, for diff weights, we have 10,000 and we have 5,000. Let's get building. So we are going to start with bag B, which is our front and rear diffs. That's where we're going to start out there. So let's go ahead and get this open and spread out, and then we'll get into our bag B here. It doesn't say, oh, here it is, 10,000 oil in the front and the 5,000 in the rear. And then bag C is our center, and it's also, so we're doing 10, 10, 5. Perfect. That's a really good starting point. These are going to be just like the ones we built in the 10 scale, except for they're just bigger, so it's easier to do everything with. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Go ahead and pause the video, and we'll open everything up and jump back in. All right, so now that we've got everything lined out here, we can go ahead and start with our grease. So as you know, if you've watched any of my other videos, the little channel that is on your outdrive cup, which is this guy here because it looks like a cup, this is going to be where that grease needs to be applied. That is going to hold that in, and it's going to be a nice sleeve in there. So we're going to put the grease around that, and it's going to go in, and that's going to help that with friction and heat, because on 8 scale stuff, you do get a lot more heat because it's a heavier vehicle, and so there's more power being put through, more torque in the drive line, all that stuff. So we need to make sure that nothing gets overheated in there. We are also going to have a washer that goes over top of this and then down over the, or underneath of the pin that goes over the O-ring, unlike on the 10th scale where we didn't have that. So on this one we are, and that is going to be washer number 101027, which is our 5x14 by 0.5. So we have 5x14 by 0.5s, we have 5x12 by 0.03, and we have a 3.5 by 10 by 0.2, which is what these guys are here. So if you want to, you can actually go ahead and take your 3.5 by 10 by 2s. So that's your big stack here. These are going to be for your spider gears. So we can remember the big gears are sun gear, and then the small gears are spider gear. So that's what those are going to go for. Then we have these two. There's two of these very large ones right here, these 5x14 by 0.05s or by 0.5s. And then we have 4 of these guys here that are the 5x12 by 0.3. So the big one is going to go on the metal gear, and then the smaller one is going to go down inside of our actual diff cup. Okay, so we're going to start with our black grease, and I'm going to go ahead and just give it a little bit of push on there and run it around inside that channel all the way around. And I usually go ahead and just scrape it all the way around to make sure that if there's any excess, it's wiped off. Okay, and go ahead and do that to all 4 of them just so that they're ready to rock. All right, so if you notice on these, the bearing has to go on first, because if you notice the drive cup itself, it's bigger than the bearing. Okay, so your bearing does have to go on first, then your drive cup, because once your drive cup is on, the bearing won't come off. And then you'll need your pin, okay, to be brought over here, because we're going to need to get our O-ring on there. So let's go ahead and get our grease on our O-rings real quick, actually, before I forget again, because I just did, which I'm sure you noticed that. Hey, go back in there. There we go. There's that. And just smear that all over all 4 of them. Just all over it. If they all stick to your fingers, that means you got enough. Perfect. You're going to put that O-ring down on there, just like so. Then you're going to grab, on this one, what I say, the big one, 101027, the 5x14, yes. So that's going to go then over top of that. So, and we got this, I'm going to slide it in here. And we're going to put our sun gear on, just like so. All right, now that one is ready to rock. So I'm going to go ahead and do both of these before we move on to the diff case. All right, so now we're going to go on to here. Same deal. We start with bearing and drive cup. That doesn't change on any of them, okay? Now it gets fun, because now we're going to have to do our O-ring, which you're going to have to get on the tip of your finger, then push down like that. And then just do your best to get it down in there. You're going to have to probably use your 1.5 to actually push it down in the slot. The 1.5 is the only thing that will actually get down in there. If it's like most 8 scales, one of these, oh, they're all channeled all the way down. Oh, thank you, SWORKz. So on most of these drive lines, these pin lines where your where this goes in right here, on most of them, only one of them goes all the way to the bottom of the cup. So you have to try to find the one that goes all the way to the bottom to put your pin in. But on this one, they all do. So that's fantastic. So then we just need to put our washer on here. Okay. Where's my pliers? Which these are a pretty snug fit, so you have to just usually push on the outside like that. Line up the hole with one of the sides, which it is. Grab your drive pin. Go by just the tip of the pliers. And you're going to work it into that hole. And you're going to get it to where it's centered on that, which is easier said than done when you have magnetic, because this has been on the magnet trays. But that is what it should look like in there. Okay? And then your other sun gear is going to drop right down on there. Give it a little pressure and a twist and pop right in place. Okay? Then we're going to do the same thing on this side. So now you're going to do just like on the 10 scale, or if you've ever done any others of these, where you have your cross pins. They call these cross pins because once these pins are in there, they set one side down and one side up like Lincoln logs, and then make a cross, just like so. So you're going to put your spider gear on, or planetary gear if you don't like talking about spiders, if you got some arachnophobia. These two right here that you have of these extra 5x12s, just set them to the side for now. Not sure when we'll get to those. Or if we'll get to them. Or if we even need them. We probably don't even need them, because I think that's all we needed of those. These little guys here, these 3.5 bys, these are going to go on the outside of your spider gears. Drop down in there, and just like so. Now, one thing I will say is different from the 10 scale with these is these pins, once they're in, they do not turn. As you see, they're keyed on the side, so they can only go in facing up or facing down. So once you get it lined up and that key is dropped in there, it's good to go. You're not going to rotate it once it's in there, so you don't have to worry about it coming unrotated. So I don't have to like really push on it to make sure that it stays upright. This one we have to make sure is facing down and on the cross section. And just give it a little push. Put your finger right in the middle of it like so, and give it a twist. And that'll help them drop in. And once they're all dropped in, you can see them rotate nice like that. Okay, and we're going to do this one as well. Same deal. So now we can go ahead and get our front and rears lined up here. Now remember, we're putting thicker fluid in the front than we are the rear. 10K in the front, 5K in the rear. On that note, let me see if I can find a silver Sharpie real quick. One thing you do need to have on hand, if you don't have one, go ahead and get you one, is a silver Sharpie. Because once we have 10K in one and 5K in the other, since they're not the same, you need to have a silver Sharpie to write on them what they are. I'll show you what I mean by that here in just a moment. These are 2mm screws, so let's go ahead and get our 2mm bit on our driver. Because once we are full, we'll need to be putting that on. Let's do our 10K first and our 5K second. And just like with all the other ones, you want to do no more than 80% full. Good thing is this isn't 100K, so it's much easier to work with. Okay, so there's our 80% full. Let that settle. And go ahead and fill your 5K one and just put it to the opposite side so that you don't get it mixed up. 5K is just like thick shock fluid. It's really thin compared to the others. Let that settle in. Then we need our printed side, feels a little thicker than the paper side. So remember the papery side on there and the printed side on the other. So printed side facing the housing. Oops. If you get it on there and it's turned slightly, you can use your bit to do that. Sometimes I do that when I line them up too, just to make sure. All right, so then we're going to grab our 10K one to start with. I'm going to try to line it up. And you'll notice that your gasket is moved and everything's unaligned. So you can use your 1.5 to wiggle stuff into line. And then use it all the way around to make sure that the gasket is seated. Because you want that gasket to be seated where it needs to be. You don't want it crooked, because once it's crooked, if you go to screw in with it crooked, it'll leak. And you don't want it to leak. Okay, don't tighten it all the way down until you get 2 of them in. Okay, you just get them in. but not all the way tight. All right, so once you get them all the way in, then grab your 2mm wrench and you're going to tighten them bottom, top, left, right, just like you're tightening lug nuts on a car. So basically just like torquing lug nuts or wheel bolts, depending on what kind of car you have. We have both because I have a Suburban and my wife has a Volkswagen. You're going to grab your Sharpie and you're going to write on here 10K. See, just like that, 10K. That you know that that one is 10K. One thing that a lot of guys will do is if you're going to a big race, they'll spend the extra couple $100 to have like literally 8 of these or more with different weight fluids in them and marked on the outside so that you can get everything prepped before you get to the track. That way, the only thing you have to do to change out different fluids is pull the 4 bolts out of the transmission, pull the cap off, pull the gear out, throw the new gear in, grease it, cap on, 4 bolts, you're good to go. That way you're not having to mess with trying to get the fluid out of here and then get new stuff in. Doing that at a big race can save you a ton of time, and depending on how many classes you're running and how busy the track is, you might need that extra, 15-20 minutes of cleaning all this out to actually be able to get the practice laps in that you need, especially if you're going to a big race like AMS or SICK or War Nats or anything like that. That's $100 a class to enter, and it's national titles and everything else. And it's like you need track time so that you can get the track time you need to get better, to do the setups that you need to actually be able to get on that podium. Because when you are at those races, you're not spending that kind of money to get last place. Don't tell me that you're going just to have fun. You're not spending $100 to go to a national event unless you're actually trying to get up into the A main. In order to get on the podium, you need to be able to maintain your car and tune your car, and you can't do that efficiently if you're having to spend 20-30 minutes on every one of the 3 of these in the car, cleaning them out every time you need to change fluid. It works if it's like already past round 1, or you're already past seating and practice and you're going into the queues and you have 4 hours between your races. But if you're doing, practice rounds where you're practicing on Wednesday or Thursday and you're doing seating and you only have an hour between your races because you're trying to get in 3 rounds of seating and 5 to 10 times of getting on practice if it's open practice, you need to be able to do this quickly so you don't miss all of your practice time. And then you're like, well, I don't have my tuning done. We're down to our 3 qualifiers. I have Friday and Saturday to get this going before our mains on Saturday night or Sunday. That's the last thing that you want to do, is miss all of the time on track because you're constantly wrenching and trying to get stuff out that should be just a quick and done. So just my 2 pieces of advice. Also, when it comes to nitro cars, make sure you have a backup motor if you're going to a national event. The last thing you want to do is have a motor pop or lose pinch, and then you don't have another motor to put in there. I've seen it happen. It's no fun. And then 5K. Now you've got your 5K and your 10K, both ready to go, both marked. You can put your fluids up, and you don't have to try to figure out and worry which one's which. You can tell the difference between 10K and 5K, which feels thinner, but there's not much difference between those 2. Running speeds, when everything gets up to heat, there's a big difference to them. But when they're cold, there's not a big difference between the 2. So let's go ahead and bring our 10K back over because we're going to need that for our center diff. And go ahead and open bag C. And then once you get bag C open and lined out, we'll get going with this. So go ahead and pause the video and we'll be back in 3, 2, 1. All right, so I don't know if you remember me saying this or not, but what was one of my biggest complaints on the Techno 8 scale, the new EB48 2.2? Do you remember? Not that the car wasn't built like a tank or anything like that, but the fact that it was built like a tank and they had a plastic spur gear on the center diff. This one is hardened steel. It's not just steel, it's hardened steel. This thing is heavy, it's solid, it is not going to break. I am very happy to see that. And it's a nice big 47 tooth as well. So you've got 47 tooth here. The drive gears actually say that they're a 43 and the pinion's a 13. So that's what your ring and pinion is 43-13. I am so happy to see that. Like, I can't tell you how happy I am to see that. So cool to see. On a nitro car especially, I would hope that they would do this. If they do this on the electric one as well, fantastic. I kind of hope that they do, but that's so cool. So we're going to go ahead and get our greases going here. Remember, we're doing a thin bit of black grease on the channel of the outdrive cups. All right, we're going to write 10K on the outside of that one as well, so that we know that's a 10K. I knew we were going to get to this one today. I just didn't know if we were going to get past this. We're going to go ahead and open bag D and get all this done. This has our diff shims in it and our casings for the front and rear, it looks like. So go ahead and open bag D, line everything up, and then we'll get back here in just a second. All right, so now that we're back and we have our bag D completely open here and ready to rock, we are going to be going over, yes, page 9 of your manual, and we're going to need a few different things here. So first off, let's go ahead and put our set screws in our drive cups here, because you don't want to lose those. These are 2.5mm set screws, I do believe. These are the big giant guys here. They are. We're going to put a little bit of thread lock on there, so don't back out. So make sure you grab your thread lock. Give a little dot of thread lock on there, and then just stick her down in. I don't think we'll need thread lock for anything else. We'll just set it aside for now, though. You do have your, these will be your B and C blocks for your front and rear. As you can see here, your front, this is your B block, the one that has the like crosshatch in the middle of it here, where it narrows down, goes straight line, and widens back out. And so that's your front one. This is your rear one. This is your C block. What's cool is these are actually laser etched on both sides, unlike the 10 scale one. If you remember, the 10 scale one was only laser etched on the outside. So it's easy to tell which one's the outside and inside, but it's really cool that they do that. This little notch here, I'm assuming goes down, because usually these mount onto the chassis. So that's your C block for the rear. And then this one is your D block for the front. There is a top and a bottom to this, so make sure that you have it in the correct position. The top is the smooth side, and the bottom is the side that has the 2 screws in it, okay, 2 screw holes. So you need to make sure that that is in this orientation with the smooth side facing up. We're going to grab one of our housing fronts and our housing rears. And remember, if you watched our 10 scale one, we were trying to figure out what these goofy dudes are for, because it doesn't show us here. And I'm guessing, it looks like on this one, it's not showing us again. It's not showing us to do this until bag E1, even though this is in bag D. So we're going to go ahead and do this now. So this is an advantage of building these before I did this, as I knew this. These little holes that are on the back side of this, that are vertical facing little holes that don't have bottoms, they're actually pivot ball holes. So the notch outside of this is going to face out. And these, once this is all together, you can use a wrench on the top side right here, like a box wrench, like a 5.5mm, to push down there. And those little balls are going to actually snap down in place in there. Now, once they're in, it will not come out. So go ahead and get those snapped in once we get all this done, before we do it later on, because otherwise you're just there taking up space, they're in the way. It should be on this step anyway. So we're just going to do it now. Grab the one that has the center shaft output yoke here, and we're going to go ahead and build this first. So first things first, you're going to want to grab your pinion gear for your ring and pinion gear. So this is the inside gear. So you're going to need 2 bearings. You're going to need your bearing spacer or a crush washer, depending on what brand you're looking at. So you're going to need to put a bearing on this first, okay? And then your bearing spacer, like so. And then this actually has a spot. It sets in right down in here. So you're going to push that through like that. You can get it to push in. Boom, there we go. And on the outside, you're going to have another that goes in like that. And if you look at the output shaft of the pinion, is also stamped with that 43 1343 gear ratio. So if you're curious what your gear ratio is, you can literally just slide this guy off and see what your gear ratio is that you have in there. Now, on that flat spot where that gear ratio is where that set screw right there is going to live. So you're just going to slide that up on there, make sure you're holding it in place, grab your 2.5, and then tighten that down. Give it a good snug to make sure she doesn't back off. And now that output shaft is in there ready to go. The other thing you're going to need to put on here is what's showing pills, but we don't have any pills yet. Our pills in bag E? Yeah, our pills are in bag E, so we'll get to our pills in just a minute. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and put this on here. The pills will fall out anyway, because my guess is these aren't that tight of a pressure fit if it's anything like the other ones. So we just need to make sure that that smooth side faces up, which is the output yoke, because this is our B block. This is going on the front, and then you're going to grab, which screws are we grabbing here? We have 2 screws. Are they the shorter ones or the longer ones? They're the 12s. Okay, so these row of shorter ones are the 12s. These 2 are 14. I'm going to do it this way. And before I get that all the way snug, I'm going to get the other one in so that I can still see the light through to line that up. All right, so that is in, nice and tight. And then it wants, wow, lots of diff shims on this one. My goodness. Okay, this is our front. So this is going to be our 10K. Remember, we got 5K in the rear, 10K in the front and the center. So if it's the output yoke's facing your left arm, remember this is your left, the one the wedding ring goes on, it's going to go in here like this. But before it goes in there, does it really need that many shims? Standard suggestion is 1 shim on the diff crown gear side and 3 pieces on the other side. Silly me. I forgot that these are part of the tree. These are part of the tree and they need broken off and then trimmed down. I completely forgot about that. I don't know what I was thinking there. All right, let's try this again. All right, so yoke facing out, drive goes on the left side. Oh, look at that. You see how that drops right in there now? We're going to use our red grease here. Let's just give that a couple of rotations here and see if we can get that to spread more. We're just going to touch it up. There we go. That's nice and even now. That's pretty good. I'm going to have just enough to do the front and rear ring and pinion gears, so just enough. All right, then we need our 2. Make sure your shims are in there, not, yeah, so there's less play in there now once the other end's on. All right, and 2 more of the 12 mils. These are going to go on the top side of the back. All right, and since we have grease in there and I don't want it on the counter, we're going to set that right there. And before we move on, I'm going to show you how to put these in here. Like I said, these little, the jut out side of it faces out. Just set it down on here like so. And then you're going to grab your 5.5 nut driver and you're just going to push really, really hard. And then once it's in, it moves. Okay, just set that one to the side. Now we're going to do our rear. So same deal on this one. Ta-da! Those are done, which means that's it for bags B, C, and D. We're making pretty good time though. So let's go ahead and move on to bag E, and let's get a little bit of bag E done as well. All right, so we're on bag E1. This is a huge, very full bag. So we're going to go ahead and open it, sort everything out, and we'll see what all's in here. Let's see how long it takes us to sort this giant bag of parts. All right, well, I'm back. It's the next morning. It took me 23 minutes to get all this lined out and all those pills cut out. Because this thing has, well, more pills than a pharmacist. And I don't even know where to begin. As you can see here, we have a plethora of things to choose from. We're going to get through this bag, and it's going to be the end of this video. And then next week, we'll continue on with whatever else there is. But this bag is going to be a lot. So we're going to get through this bag. And let's see what we need here. So we need our front lower arms. That's these guys. It's these smaller ones right here. 2 sway links, sway link mounts. Oh, did you notice that they actually give you 2 different size sway links for the front and the rear? Got a 2 and a 3 bar for the front, a 6 and a 8 bar for the rear. So that's cool. You can actually do some adjustability right out of the box without having to buy any extra goodies. I think that's awesome. I think more people should do that. 2 of these, and then 2 of these. And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get these in with our shock pliers, but we're going to try. To be honest, I'm getting a little bit nervous about this kit just because there's so many parts. It feels like this kit has a lot more parts. Oofta. That's a tight snap. Ow! I just smashed my thumb. That's why I don't want to squeeze too hard. Ha! Come back here. You want to be in there. That is your home. We are going to put these in with 2 3x15 screws. I'm going to say that's these guys. I'm going to make sure to drink my coffee this time before it gets cold because this is the good coffee. This is this coffee. All right, and these don't have to be like twisted to a certain angle because you can see they're solid. The arm has the angle in it. So then you just got to get the screw lined up. Make sure it's facing in and not out. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to need is 2 of these. So these are your droop adjustment screws. So they are flat on the bottom. So there's no head on the bottom. The head is on the top and it's right there. And I believe that's a 2 mil. It is. So these are a little funky, but this is how this works. So to get these in, you stick your driver through the hole, reverse your driver. You can do this by hand, but it's going to be very difficult. Put it in there. Now remember, it is still a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's still a right-hand thread. So it's going to be lefty on your drill to make it turn right because it's coming from the bottom. You're going to push down on your counter while doing your screw gun. And it will stop once it hits the top, see? And then when you put that in right now, it's going to be at full droop, and then we can adjust from there. Funky design, not having a head on the bottom of it to put it in, but it works. Still working on the front here, which if you remember, our front is the one that has the funky line on it right here, and the 10K fluid, which you can feel in there, because if you grab this one and you hold the output yoke and turn it, the 5K is thinner. So then you're going to set that on there. That's what it's going to look like. But we're not going from that direction. We're going from this direction. So now we're going to face it towards us like we're looking at the front of the car to the back. So the yoke goes this way. I also put an F on here and an R on here so that I could help remember as well. So we're going to need pills for these. And we're going to need this one facing, with this bevel side facing up. We're using countersunk screws and washers. That's interesting. And these are the really long ones. So these super long guys here is what you're using for this. And you're going to use these countersunk washers on here. So that's interesting that they're doing that instead of just having this be countersunk. Wonder what the purpose of that was. Machining cost, or was it just that this is actually stronger? Our pills needed. What are our pills? Oh, and then our hinge pins. Our hinge pins are 68.5 millimeters. So is it the long one? I'm going to say yes, because these are significantly shorter. See that? These must be for the outside. Yep, outside of the rear. So the inside of both arms are the same. So we got these guys here. So those, we're going to need those. All right, so set those to the side so that we have them there and ready. What pills do we need? Because we've got 2 different sizes here. It looks like we got 2 different sizes anyway. Let's see. Yeah, I think we got a big one and a small one. Let's look at our setup sheet in the back, which just like on the other ones, there is a optional parts list page. There's a big one for this one because they have all of the different wings on there colorful plastic inserts. You can get different color inserts? Fluorescent yellow? What? Light blue? Fluorescent orange? Travis RC, if you're watching this, they have fluorescent orange. You definitely need to get an SWORKz kit. I gotta look this up. The rear block is center and up. Okay, so some of these are for roll center adjustments. They're done with pills. Really? Oh, on the front it is. On the rear it's not. That's interesting. Oh yeah, because it's a pivot ball car. That's right. Duh. Center and up on the rear and center on the front. Center and up on the rear and center on the front. So the front one is going to be middle. These are the bigger ones, right? Are they the bigger, thicker ones? Or are they the bigger, thinner ones? It's not that. That don't fit. Is it this one? That don't fit neither. Is it this one? Aha! We have a winner! We have a tight-fitting winner. Does that mean this actually fits? No, because that would go way through it. We don't want that in there sticking way out. These are a very tight fit, though, I will say that. It's kind of crazy. All right, there's that one. So on the rear, what did it say on the rear? Do you guys remember what I said on the rear? The rear was center and up. The front was center. Okay, so rear is center and up. So we've got our single dot that's on the side, so just make sure that single dot is up. Pins in the arms, pins in the C block, or the B block. A block on, or A block on. A block, no gooey. Why you no movie, A block? Oh my goodness, is this supposed to be the deep set ones for the, oh geez. So those are the deeper ones, that's why. All right, so we need to pop these guys out. Oofta. That's a tight fit. Mm-hmm. Yep. So if you're ever wondering why I call them persuaders, it's because you can persuade things with them. Let's try that one more time, okay? So we need the center up on the long one, not the short one. All right, so now that we got those in, let's try this again here. You know, it's like we got snow coming in and suddenly my northern's coming out. So here's something that I should have noticed, but I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. I put these on upside down. It doesn't say right or left. It doesn't say anything other than an H for hard. But there's these divots cut out on this side. Those are for your shocks and drive cups. Don't do what I did. Don't be ignoramus. Pay attention to what you're doing. Let's try that again. Third time's the charm. I have the arms on backwards anyway. I wish I could just delete the last 27 minutes and start again. Goodness. Now look, we've got the clearance for that and it doesn't hit now. Oh my goodness. And it's facing the right direction. Oh my goodness. And look, those fit in there perfect. Oh, geez. You know, sometimes you're a mound, sometimes you're an almond joy. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't. I cannot believe I did what I just did. But it wants you to put on this little thing that we already put on, but we're not going to because we already got it on. 3x3, so you're gonna need your 1.5 driver. You're gonna need your short guys here. The 3x3s are gonna go in your sway link holders. 2.2 or 2.3. I'm gonna be running on looser stuff, so let's just start with the 2.2. Line them up on each one, drop them down in place, and then shut that. And then you're just gonna line it up with the end of the rod, tighten it down, and do the same on this one. I didn't think that was all the way in there. There we go. Our sway link guide is in place, and we're on to the next page where we put in our 2.5x8s. That's these dudes, and our 3x4s. That's these dudes. Now I do believe that all of these are 1.5. So let's make it easy. So the top one is the button head. I've had a couple of guys message me and say, which driver am I using? This is the like 3 foot-pounds impact driver from Bosch. These have a different battery now. This one is like 5 years old, if not older. All right, this is the PS41 is the model. 12 volt Bosch lithium driver. It's like $100 at Menards or Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever carries Bosch. I know I got it at Menards, but I know not everybody has a Menards. If you don't have a Menards, I'm sorry. Now we're going to, really? Seems backwards, but we're going to mount our top deck. Oh, because it's the mount for the, so we need this guy. This is our upper arm holder. We need our top deck here, which is a carbon piece. We need 2 countersunk 006 3x8s, and we got 2 3x10s, and 1 button head 3x10. Le bouton. So first things first, let's put our front body mount on here, which is this guy, and it's not going to go that way. It's going to go this way. There we go, because they want it towards the front, right? No, screw goes to the back side, nub towards the front. So they do want it backwards from the 10 scale one. Okay. And then that is our button head. Our one lone button head on this top deck goes through right here. If you're not sure which side's the top and bottom of this decking, just remember the countersunk screw side that's been, wallered out. That faces up. All right, so 2 3x8s. That's these guys, and these are going to need thread locker. So we'll go ahead and set these here. These are going into aluminum, so use your hand driver. Just remember that. As we go throughout, there's going to be a lot of aluminum we're going to be screwing into on this kit, I think. And the open side needs to face this way. All right, so this is the front, this is the rear. The open side of this needs to face this way. And this is something that you're probably never going to take off unless you break this carbon piece for some reason. These need pills, so it mirrors the lower. So we're doing up and middle. And these are the larger ones, right? And then, okay, so these go with the shock tower. The ones with the crosshatch on them. So we're just going to put these up here so we know which ones those are. So these ones are for the rear side of this. Up and center, up and center. All right, so now we're going to mount this some which way, like this. Yes. So now you need your 10 mils. Okay, mount. And for good measure, we're hand tightening just to make sure we don't over torque the carbon. Front upper hinge pins are the shorter guys here. So those are going to go in there. So we need these. And then we need 4 3x12 countersunks, 2 3x5 button heads. That's these tiny little short dudes over here. Put all inserts behind the front upper arms. You will get faster steering response. Otherwise, put all inserts in front of the upper arms. You will get more stable steering response. I want faster. But first, before we do that, let's go ahead and get our arms. And then all these little bitty guys here, which I believe are these 1.5s. They are 1.5s. Doesn't look like there's a top or bottom to these. They just kind of drop in here. And there we go. Start screwing down. I do like that they have a hole in the middle of them for reaching down to your adjustment here for your droop. The droop adjustment. There's a hole in the middle of it to reach your droop adjustment. That's what I'm trying to say. The hinge pins are going to go in here. Your front shock tower is going to go on the front with its center dot pills in it. So let's go ahead and put those in first. Does it go on the outside? Those require a lot of force to get in. Oh, and the button heads help hold them in. I see. Oh man, I even shaved these down and they still fit that tight. All right, so then these tiny button heads actually help hold them in. So these go in these holes right here. And then they pinch down on there. And then these go in your tower. In your holes here on the tower. Once you get it aligned. I was trying to screw it before it was aligned and it was like, no! Now, it wants us to, this is your Ackerman adjustment right here. Okay? We're going to put as many thick clips behind here as we can. So you got your ultra thick guy. So now we're going to go ahead and set this to the side. And it looks like we're going to bring our rear a little closer. because we're going to grab our rear arms and bring them over. And we're going to do the same thing on the rear arms that we did on the front ones, but making sure that we're doing it on the side that has the dimples and not the other side. So these need to face like this. They don't say right or left, they just say hard, or H for hard. These are actually divoted on both sides. So unlike the fronts, these are interchangeable. So you can do it this way or this way, and it doesn't matter. Great. That means we don't have to worry about making mistakes like we did on the last one. All right, so we're going to need our droop. We're going to need our 2 3x12s, bouton heads. Okay? Or 3x15 button heads, I mean. Not 12s, 15s. All right, and then we're going to need, what are those? Well, that's new. Arch bridge, rear lower arm cover. What the heck is an arch bridge? I've never seen. Okay, so now our arch bridge, which is our 1.5 millimeter bit. And these, the nut goes, so it goes on the bottom like this, with the nut in it. Oh, geez. You might need the pliers to snap these tiny nuts in here, because I can't even hang on to them. No siree. Oh, there it goes. All right, so good thing is these don't fall out. So let's go ahead and do that to both of them, just so that they're in. Oh, that one dropped right in. Cool. I mean, so, all right, so then like this, do these just push through? They do. So I can just use my hand driver on these. All right, so those are done. Now I can move on to step 14. Step 14 is our rear shock tower. So we can set our arms aside for now. Okay. Bring our rear end over. You're going to need this facing away from you, of course, like usual they do. 4 3x12s. These are for our shock tower mount, I'm assuming. Yes. 1 3x10 button head. That's this guy. This is going to be for our body mount. And then 2 3x14s. That's these guys. And they're going to go through this. Let's go ahead and put our long guys in here. Click, click. Ta-da! All right, so long guys are in place. All right, and divot side of the tower where it's cut in, it's going to face the back of the car. So the flush side faces the output yoke for the center shaft. So this is going to go the nub in the middle hole, because they want us to screw it through the bottom hole. Okay. All right, there's that. And then the shock tower goes like so, with that being right above the chassis brace mount. And then our 4 screws go in here in their normal spots. And I say normal spots because this is kind of where every shock tower mounts at, is these 4 holes. No matter what size or kit it is. Heck, I think that even the boys Traxxas Slash down there mounts in these same 4 kind of holes like this. At least the rear one. On the 4-wheel drive Slash, it might be the front one too. But there's that done. I'm going to go refill my coffee, and I'll be right back. Next is arms and pills, which we don't know what the pills are for this yet because we haven't looked. So, the arms, so the lines that are on the arms right here, This line right here that's on the arm, you can see that? You see that? You can see that. I'm going to show you right here. Look here. Look at this one. Look in the corner at this one. This line faces the back of the car. Output yoke facing forward. Okay? So it should look like this. Okay? Not quite like that. You know, it looks like this right here. That's how it'll look. Anyway, you get the idea. There's that. Here's our hinge pins. We can go ahead and just slide our hinge pins through our arms so they don't roll away or get lost or anything like that. All right, and here's our rear. So the little brackety side of it is going to go underneath because that's actually going to screw through the chassis and into the rear end. Excuse me. So that is that's going to be our mount for that. And we need these two ultra long guys for this. But first and foremost, we have to go back to the back of the book and find out what pills go where for our C and D block. So back to page 38 we go. Our C block, which says front and then the rear. So the front of the rear is this one here. This is our C block. This is going to be top middle. Okay. And then the rear is also top middle. Interesting. We're going to start with kit set and then we can change from there. Are these right? Are these bigger than... Look at that. It pulls right down in there. So I'm going to say, yeah, that is the correct one. So these are bigger than the front pills. So the rears are the big... What in the Sam Hill? The front lowers are the smaller pills with the thick ones going in the back and the small ones going in the front. And then the rear are the same depth of pill, but they're the bigger ones. That's not confusing at all. Nope, not at all. Arms into our pills. And we have no spacers. So then we just do our rear pills too. Maybe. Come hither. Come here. Why are you doing this? Why? There we go. Give a good squeeze. As you can actually see that toe end right there. That is a really good example of that toe end. You can see the rear block is wider than the front block. We haven't made it straighter, so you can make it straighter by making the rears go to the inside and then the fronts go to the outside, and it will straighten up the arm. You can also make it more extreme by making the fronts go to the inside and the rears to the outside, and it will angle that arm in even more. But there is your rear toe in. Pretty cool to actually see that at that angle, so you can kind of make it out. All right, now you're gonna get your big long screws. You may have to finagle a little bit. There we go. That just happened. That's the first time I've broken a bit in years. Look who's back. Mr. Wobble Bob. We're on to step 15. Nope, we just did step 15. Now we're on to step 16. Which is installing our sway link. 2.8 or 2.6. We're going to put in, like I said, the lighter ones of these because the first track that I think we're going to run at is a pretty light, fluffy surface, if I do remember. We're either going to be running this in Ardmore, Oklahoma at Shaw's or in Neosho, Missouri at Chicken Dinner. One of those two will be the first race of both of these 8-scale cars. The 4-wheel drive behind me may race at Shaw's as well because they run 4-wheel drive 10th scale at their track, not just 8 scale. I've got this one set up for outdoor and this one set up for indoor at the moment. So the mod is set up for outdoor and the 13.5 is set up for indoor. This would be a 13.5, that'll be a mod. So now we've got step 16 and 17 done. That is the end of bag E1. All right, so bag E2 is what we're on to. And we're going to save that for later because that's our bell crank assembly. We know that those take a while. So this is going to be the end of part 1. This is probably more than we've ever done in a part 1 up to this point. But I wanted to go ahead and get this kind of going here. So here's our front, rear, and center. And we will see you next week. So until then, keep the shiny side up, the rubber side down, and remember to stay in the groove.